Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari. So I'll just give the English translation of that. It's Krishna is the lover of Radha. He displays many amorous pastimes in the groves of Vrindavan. He is the lover of the cowherd maidens of Raj, the holder of the great hill named Govardhan, the beloved son of Mother Yasoda, the delighter of the inhabitants of Raj, and he wanders in the forests along the banks of the river Yamuna. So I'll just give a reading from the Srila Prabhupada Leela and Rita. This is volume 6, Uniting Two Worlds. So we're on the chapter called Krishna's Great Soldier. After a pause, Narayana Maharaj spoke again, this time referring to Srila Prabhupada's disciples. They should be told that they should never get motivated by their own self-interest. They should make your mission successful, he said. Srila Prabhupada turned his head slowly, looking over the devotees as they gathered in even more closely. Then slowly he lifted his hand as if to call them all to attention and said, "Do not fight among yourselves. I have given direction in my books." He then lowered his hand. Prabhupada's godbrother, Indupati, entered the room. Srila Prabhupada heard his greeting and repeated his request. "First of all, I want to say forgive me for all my offenses. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but while preaching, one has to sometimes say something that may offend others. Will you forgive me?" Yes, Indupati said. "Maharaj, you didn't commit any offense," said Narayana Maharaj. "We never thought that you did anything wrong. On the other hand, you bless us. We need it. You never did any wrong. If someone is offended by your actions, that is his fault." Narayana Maharaj then gently took Srila Prabhupada's right hand and felt his pulse. After a moment or two, he said, "Pulse is all right, and your consciousness is perfect. If you have to go by the will of the Lord, then you will go perfectly." Promising to return again, Narayana Maharaj asked permission to leave, and he and Indupati and their party left the room. Srila Prabhupada's disciples moved back and remained silent, not wanting to instigate any conversation to unnecessarily tax Prabhupada. They appreciated Narayana Maharaj's words, but it was another final goodbye. Before the atmosphere of despair could engulf them, they began again their soft singing kirtan. Early one morning in October, as Srila Prabhupada continued fasting from food and drink, Upendra made an innocent but somewhat impertinent complaint. How can you refuse to drink? He asked. What is wrong if I don't drink? Srila Prabhupada replied. I feel no inconvenience. Upendra added that if Srila Prabhupada didn't drink, his body would become dehydrated. Prabhupada made no reply, and Upendra left the room. What about water? Abhiram asked. Srila Prabhupada thought for a moment and said, So you discuss among yourselves and decide what you want me to do. Discuss? He seemed to be speaking of more than the merits of drinking water. Discuss about recovery? Asked Abhiram. I don't want, said Srila Prabhupada. You say you don't want recovery, Srila Prabhupada? Yes, said Srila Prabhupada. Abhiram then went to the outer room, the secretary's reception room, where some of the GBC men were sitting together. He dutifully mentioned what Srila Prabhupada had just said, to discuss among themselves about his recovery. But Abhiram's remark didn't seem like news. The devotees were already well aware that Prabhupada was making almost no attempt to carry on. They were resigned to it. Srila Prabhupada wanted to leave now, to die peacefully. They had been trying to encourage him to drink, but now he was determined to simply fast until the right time came. Whether they could accept it or not, it was happening. Therefore, Abhiram's comment provoked no formal discussion. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 5, text 11. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Shikod Nitai Maya Prasashi Ki Jai. Tad, Vag, Vishago, Janat Aga, Viplavo, Tad, Vag, Vishago, Janat Viplavo, Yasmin, Prati, Slokam, Abadatvati, Api, Yasmin, Prati, Slokam, Abadatvati, Api, Namani, Anantasya, Yasho, Nikantati, Yat, Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Grinanti, Sadhava. You chant. Tadvaga Vishkago Janagat Viplavo. Yasmin Prati Sloka Abad Api. Namani Antasya Yasoda Mikanyat. Vanti Gayanti Granti Sadhava. Tadvaga Vishago Janagat Viplavo. Yasman Priti Slokam Abhadyavat Api. Namani Antasya Suki Niyat Shrivanti Gayanti Grinati Sadava Tadvago Shako Janatago Viplavo Yasman Priti Slokam Abad Api Namani Antasya Yasti Slokat Nandiyat Srivanti Gayanti Nati Sadava Tadvaga Vishako Janatago Viplavo Tasmain Pati Slokam Abadvati Api Nanani Antasya Yasovikaniyat Srivanti Gayanti Grinati Sadava Mataji's Tadvago Vishago Janagat Viplavo Yasmam Priti Slokam Abadvati Api Namani Atansya Yasasa Gityat Vanti Granti Vanti Sadava. So the word for word, tat, that, vak, vocabulary, visaga, creation, jananta, the people in general, aga, sins, viplava, revolutionary, yasmin, in which, pratishlokam, each and every stanza, abadavati, irregularly composed, api, in spite of, namani, transcendental names, etc. Anantasya, of the unlimited Lord. Yasha, glories. And Kitani, depicted. Yat, what? Shrinvanti, do hear. Gayanti, do sing. Grinanti, do accept. Sadhava, the purified men who are honest. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Translation. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So I'll just go through the translation, and I'll take you through it. I'll just read a little bit, then you can repeat what I've read. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Purport. It is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even from the worst. It is said that the intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stock of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, should accept a good and qualified wife even from an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. But a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change, and the result of propagating the transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing this commentation on this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighbouring friend China has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit. We have practically no business in the political field, yet we see that previously there were both China and India, and they both lived peacefully for centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in an atmosphere of God consciousness, and every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. There is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, China and India, over land, which is not very suitable for habitation, and certainly there is no cause for fighting on this issue. But due to the age of quarrel, Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. This is due not to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Systematically, there is propaganda by a section of people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the supermost good, as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world. Because India has failed in her duty by neglecting this responsible work, there is so much quarrel and trouble all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam is received only by the leading men of the world, certainly there will be a change of heart, and naturally the men in general will follow them. The mass of people in general are tools in the hands of the modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature for conveying transcendental messages, for reviving the God consciousness of the people in general, and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies despite our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration. The leaders of society will still accept this due to its being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is a fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbours, who may be foreigners, and yet, without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbours understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast this transcendental message of the Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success. And there are too many materialistic activities by the people in general all over the world, there is no wonder that a person or nation attacks another person or nation on slight provocation. That is the rule of this age of Kali or quarrel. The atmosphere is already polluted with corruption of all description, and everyone knows it well. There are so many unwanted literatures full of materialistic ideas of sense gratification. In many countries, there are bodies appointed by the state to detect and censor obscene literature. This means that neither the government nor the responsible leaders of the public want such literature, and yet it is in the marketplace because the people want it for sense gratification. People in general want to read. That is a natural instinct, but because their minds are polluted, they want such literatures. Under the circumstances, transcendental literature like Srimad Bhagavatam will not only diminish the activities of the corrupt mind of the people in general, but also it will supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. In the beginning, they may not like it, because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy, but we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Similarly, let there be systematic propaganda for popularizing reading of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which will act like sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification. When men have a taste for this literature, the other literatures, which are catering poison to society, will automatically cease. We are sure, therefore, that everyone in human society will welcome Srimad Bhagavatam, even though it is now presented with so many faults, for it is recommended by Sri Narada, who has very kindly appeared in this chapter. So I'll just read the translation of the verse again. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Amagana Tirimandas Ya Jana Jana Salakaya Shakshurum Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopikat Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Aptakanchana Gorangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Stute Dave Paranami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Parunachananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So thanks for your attention. So here I am again, churning a class on a sloka of the Srimad Bhagavatam and trying to take the nectar from this churning. So I hope this class won't be like tasting the contents of a jar of honey by licking the outside of the jar and not actually tasting the honey. So this is actually, it's not actually so easy, but I've just been taking a sort of a class on self-esteem, which includes a class on overcoming the yucky voice. The yucky voice is like the inner critic, which tells you that when you get something difficult to do, that you're not making a good job of it, that you sort of you can't do it. But you have to overcome the inner critic by implanting words in your consciousness, like you can do it, and yeah. So So there's the analogy of the sieve and the needle. Once upon a time, there was a sieve and there was a needle. And the sieve said to the needle, the trouble with you is that you've got a hole in it. So this analogy is used to illustrate the point that devotees shouldn't have a critical mentality towards each other. They shouldn't indulge in fault finding and criticism of each other. It's the day before the Christmas marathon starts, and the verse actually mentions transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So I thought, bearing that in mind, I could go over some of the points from Vaisheshika's recent seminar on book distribution. So this is it. In his seminar, Vaisheshika stressed the importance of Sampradaya. Sampradaya literally means gift giving, even complete gift giving something that's most valuable. So what we have solves all the problems of a person, and it is very meticulously, delicately, and carefully passed down from those who are devoted from one heart to the next. The vibration that comes out represents the Sampradaya. We get it immersed in the sound vibration that is passed down to us. We feel a transformation, and through that transformation, we see reality, and we're able to pass it on to others. This is the test of the Sampradaya. If it's effective, then those who are receiving the vibration will also become qualified to pass it on to others. Mahaprabhu said that we require millions of Guru devotees to go out who take responsibility for hearing the sound vibration of the Sampradaya and passing it on to others. If we can get an order coming down through the Sampradaya, that is a rope from the spiritual world, and we get hold of that rope and serve to the best of our ability, that rope will take us back home, back to Godhead. So this Sampradaya is also known as the Sampradaya of the book. Srila Prabhupada, when he was very much younger, he got an instruction from his Guru Maharaj. And the instruction was, if you ever get money, print books. So this is what it's an instruction that Srila Prabhupada really took to heart. As we all know, there's been a great many books printed and distributed by ISKCON, by the BBT, and just tomorrow we're going to start to be responsible for distributing these books. So Vaisheshika has worked out that there's 4 laws of book distribution, and these laws are: firstly, your sadhana must be strong; secondly, you must get books. You can't distribute books you don't have. Thirdly, the more you show, the more you sell. And fourthly, you must organize. So the 7 purposes of ISKCON. Number 7 is to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. And there are 2 things that Lord Chaitanya emphasized: chant Hare Krishna and teach it to others. If you create a strong why, you'll figure out the how. Book distribution will lead to a renaissance of Krishna consciousness all over the world. It'll usher in a new age of Krishna consciousness. Success is not a mystery, it's a recipe. Small victories add up. So these 2 things are related to the sort of to the first law of book distribution. Your sadhana must be strong. So it's make japa great again and a chapter a day of the Bhagavad Gita. These are both things that are important to making your sadhana strong. So he also said that jivas are open to suggestion, to tascha. Goals are potent, set goals. Build a follow-up strategy, build team spirit. What gets analysed gets improved. Analyse and report scores. Success principles. Assume it can be done, because we are not the doer. Lord Chaitanya's in control. Encourage the heck out of everybody. Shraddha comes from association. Katvanga consciousness. Do what you can with the time you have. You may be surprised. Jaladuta consciousness. Do something bold for Lord Chaitanya. Book distribution is high sadhana and turns kanistas into madhyamas. How we do is more important than what we do. Emphasize team over individual. Increase capacity individually and collectively. The more you give, the more you grow. Keep the bar low to start. ABS equals always better service. And there's a little sort of mantra you can repeat to yourself when you're doing book distribution and you're finding it difficulty, and that's to say, I save one soul at a time, starting with myself. He also recommends that when you're doing street distribution, that you pick the right fruits. So that means that you should spend time on the people who are likely to yield the good results. Don't waste your time on sort of people who just want to get into an argument and want to sort of put the sort of what you're doing down. He also said we could hold a monthly Sankirtan festival, MCF. There's three points to this MCF, which is touch the pavement, leave everybody with a good impression, and 3, preaching means giving. He also did a little presentation on distributing Bhagavad Gita on its own merits, and these 8 points are: firstly, radar; 2, qualify; 3, Shikodnitai Mayapusashiki; 3, trust the hand; 4, give a nutshell presentation; 5, show and tell; 6, compliment; 7, humor; 8, engage. And so he says, pray hard, follow the example of Sri Advaita Acharya. So thanks for your patience in bearing with me on that. So I'll talk about the purport a little bit now. So well, I wouldn't describe this as being a mystic verse, but it's a straightforward essay on the degradation of Kali Yuga and the necessity for Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam, which was brought to us via a great deal of very hard work on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. 5,000 years. This book's was written 5,000 years ago, and it's still relevant today. So there's a thing that's called Sanatana Dharma, and I think this Bhagavatam's a very good illustration of the principle of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana means that which is unchanging, that which doesn't change. So I liked it when right at the beginning he said when he said a few things about the qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even from the worst. And so I've got a few little sayings of myself that I'd like to sort of pass on to you. Too much devotion is a sign of a thief. Whatever spiritual progress one makes in life will be tested at the time of death. A madman, what does he not say? And a goat, what does he not eat? And actually, when I was doing some reading, I came across a little sort of a little verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which I thought was a good sort of counterpart to that last saying, which is, a madman, what does he not say? And a goat, what does he not eat? So this verse is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 2, text 45, the ecstatic manifestations of Lord Chaitanya. Unalloyed love of Krishna is like an ocean of happiness. If someone gets one drop of it, the whole world can drown in that drop. It is not befitting to express such love of Godhead. Yet a madman must speak. But even though he speaks, no one believes him. So there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 11. Avajanti mam muda manusham tunam ashritam parambhavam ajananto mamabhuta mahashvaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and the supreme Lord of all that be. So, this verse is even more pertinent when it's applied to the Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna in book form. This Srimad Bhagavatam is a treasure house of slokas, stories, histories, and ideas, especially the 10th canto, which deals exclusively with Krishna's pastimes. I recently found a little to illustrate my point about the Srimad Bhagavatam being a treasure house of slokas, stories, histories, and ideas. I recently found a little sloka from the 10th canto, chapter 14, text 58, because this sloka ends with the words Pad Pam Yad Vipadam Tesham. That means that there's danger at every step. So I've been going around sort of telling myself for a while that there's danger at every step. This danger at every step thing, it's a description of the material world. It's a description of what the world's like out there. There's danger at every step. Yeah, you have to always remember Krishna. Always keep Krishna in the center. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. I'll just tell you a little story about being eager to accept Krishna. This concerns Bilvamangala Thakur Goswami. He became attracted to a prostitute named Chintamani, and every night he used to go and visit her, and he used to have to cross a river to go and visit her. So one night there was a storm, but he was still set on visiting her. So the river that he had to cross was all swollen up. You know, it was really raging in a torrent, but he still decided to cross it to see her. Then I've even heard when he got to the house in which she lived, he had to climb up the creepers on the outside of the wall to get into her room. And Chintamani said, all that effort you put into meeting me tonight, why don't you put that effort into sort of your Krishna consciousness? Then you'll become a much better person. So he took Chintamani's advice and became renounced. So in the purport where it says, directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization, I thought I could just highlight 4 ideas that are used in Krishna consciousness, and if these ideas were sort of accepted by civilization at large, there'd be a transformation of civilization. It will become a true civilization. So the first value that I'd like to highlight It's just a saying by Srila Prabhupada. It goes, simple living, high thinking. So we can very easily see that this sort of motto, simple living and high thinking, isn't accepted by civilization at large. It's the sort of leaders of society that don't practice simple living. So in their sort of quest to sort of make their lives comfortable, they're making themselves materially wealthy, but neglecting spiritual values. If they concentrate on reviving the spiritual consciousness, which is dominant in all of us, there'd be a much happier civilization. People would live a much more civilized and contented life. So the second point that I'd like to sort of highlight is that Srila Prabhupada once said that no one living within 10 miles of an ISKCON temple should go hungry. So this saying has been picked up by people who have made it their business to distribute prasadam to those who are in need. We can see that the Food for Life programs and the Food for Scotland's programs, they're doing a really fantastic job of providing spiritual food to those who are in need. But we should remember that this world's got enough resources to feed everybody. It's just that the resources are being misused. Hunger's a terrible thing. It really sort of it's really terrible when you see when there's a widespread famine or anything like that, and all those people who are dying because they're just starving to death, and it's really ugly, and there's no need for it really. When there's somebody once said that the only shortage is that there's a shortage of Krishna consciousness. The only shortage in this world is that there's a shortage of Krishna consciousness. So these Food for Life programs, they're a sort of illustration of Srila Prabhupada's devotees are sort of taking what he says seriously and trying to put these things into practice. And so I'll just pass on to the next point. So this point is called the Ishyavashya principle. Ishyavashyamidam sarvam yakincha jagatjam jagat tina tekatena bunjita magrida kesha saviddama. Everything animate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So this point is linked to simple living, high thinking, really. You see, there's a saying that it should be need, not greed. So, how do I express this? Well, the important thing from this verse is that everybody's got their own quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. So the person to whom they belong, who are supplying everybody, is the Lord. And now in Krishna consciousness, what we take seriously is that is basically that after this life, everybody's going to get a next life. We believe in the transmigration of the soul. This material body is like a suit of clothes, and when it becomes worn out, the soul inside the body leaves the body and finds a new body to dwell in. So that however, what's important in this is the body that the soul becomes attracted to next. You know, it's factual that one can take his next incarnation as a member of a lower species of life. Say in the animal kingdom, which obviously, if you think about it, you don't want to go through all that again. You know, you don't want to sort of live a life as a dog or a cat, even. You know. So everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota. So what this means is that we have to be satisfied with those things that come most easily. The materialistic society, which judges things on how much they cost instead of how much use you can get out of them, is it's on its way to a bitter end. So I'm a little bit stretched for time, so I'll just pass on to the next point. So this is the whole scheme of the Vedic civilization. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 13. Chato vanyam mayas trishtam guna karma vigabhashya tasya kataram apimam vide akataram avayayam. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the undoer, being unchangeable. So this system is called Varna Ashram. In it, when Krishna is saying that according to the three modes of material nature, society is divided into four occupations and four spiritual orders. The four occupations that it's divided into are the Brahmins. The Brahmins are in the mode of goodness. The Kshatriyas, they're in the mode of passion. The Vaishyas, they're in the mode of mixed passion and ignorance. And the Shudras, they're in ignorance. So in the Varnashram society, the Brahmins, they're at the top of the society. They're like the thinkers of the society. The Kshatriyas are the warrior class. They're the ones who enforce the law. The Vaishyas are the merchants, and the Shudras are the general class of workers. So the Brahmins, they're distinguished by sort of peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmins work. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. Farming, cow protection, and business, and labour. Farming, cow protection, and business are the qualities of work for the Vaishyas, and labour and service for others are the qualities by which the Sudras operate. So I'd just like to Give another verse from the Bhagavad Gita. This one's chapter 9, text 32. Mamhi patha vaya pashrita yepe shua papa yonaya shrito vashas shudras tepi yanti paramgitam. Osana pratha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas and Sudras cannot attain the supreme destination. So this verse is important because it shows the inclusiveness of Krishna consciousness. The focus of Varnashram Dharma is spiritual advancement and spiritual satisfaction for each member of society. Society is compared to a body. Brahmins are the head. They have vision, thinking, listening, and advising. Kshatriyas are the arms for protecting, fighting, and administrating. Vaishyas are the belly, nourishing and producing. Shudras are the legs, supporting and transporting. So I'll just present some of what's recommended training for the Varnas. Brahmins, scriptural studies, Prabhupada's instructions of Varnashram, teacher training, mental health and learning disabilities, Ayurvedic medicine, herbal healing, deity worship in the rural community, kings in the Bhagavatam, Kshatriyas, religion, politics, social order, economics, military arts, ethics and morality, the sciences, management, devotional service. For Vaishyas, their training could be fundamentals of ecology and permaculture, agronomy, developing a resource inventory, basic farming practice, fundamentals of animal health and reproduction, Krishna's example of cow protection, basic cow care, working with oxen, the herd sire, pasture management, food grain products and processing, fiber plant production and processing, economics, orchard skills, forestry, Sudras, technical drawing, implement design and construction, woodworking and carpentry, blacksmithing, cart and wagon design and construction, road building and excavating, energy efficient house construction, paper making, shorthand, water supply and sanitation, energy forms, potentials and pitfalls, performance arts for preaching, visual arts for preaching, small-scale textile production, vegetable dyes. A Varnashram community will consist mainly of Vaishyas and Sudras, just a few Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Each Varna and ashram has its own dharma. Varnashram does not support the caste system, which is rigid and hereditary, often motivated by exploitation and a desire to maintain the status quo. So that's my presentation finished. If anybody's got any comments, questions or comments, please.
There's an online question, Prabhu. So the question is by Timon McManus. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. The question, Hare Krishna, thank you for this class. What is the first step to take to free oneself from worldly materialistic unhappiness? The lure of all things material as a route to happiness is all pervasive.
Well, I'm tempted to say just picking up one of Prabhupada's books, but that would be a sort of little bit too glib. What's the first step to self-realization? It's just becoming dissatisfied with materialism and realizing that it's not as good as it's painted out to be. Just becoming dissatisfied and sort of thinking that there's got to be more to life than this. So I think everybody's a seeker of some kind or another. It's just that they have to sort of they have to be pointed in the right direction. because if you can become Krishna consciousness in a moment, or it can take many, many lifetimes. Someone who's becoming dissatisfied with materialism has to sort of be made aware of Prabhupada's teachings, really, I'd say. Does that answer the question? Dissatisfied, sorry.
The quote that you said before, maybe you could just clarify what it means, because I didn't understand it, but there's some maxims I thought it was now. Too much devotion is the sign of the thief. Wasn't it? You could just explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, to say too much devotion is a sign of a thief. Once in ISKCON's history, there was an incident where Prabhupada bought some land from a man that wasn't being entirely honest. He was trying to sell the land, take the money, and regain control of the land. And Prabhupada used this phrase to describe him. He said, "I don't exactly trust this man. He's showing that he's showing too much devotion. Too much devotion is a sign of a thief."
What's not enough? Devotion is not enough.
Yeah. So I think it means it's just someone who gives the impression of being, who wants to give the impression of being, 100% devoted is not to be trusted, really.
So if someone's not devotional, what's that a sign of? If they don't seem to care about things, they have a very kind of haphazard, careless, casual way about them. They just read things dirty all the time and messy. What would that be a sign of?
Yeah, they need to improve their Krishna consciousness. Yeah.
I think there's too much devotion. It's more like like an external show in that sense. It's like somebody's doing a lot of external show, etc. But internally, there's a lack of substance. So in that sense, too much devotion is a sign of the thief. You can't say that if your devotee has too much devotion, or see this practitioner has too much devotion. It's more just like on the external show is devotion. This is on the form rather than substance.
Thank you. Thanks.
My son was following the dog, right? It's not realized that if listening from his creating young people, this is a new problem.
That reminds me, I saw when the devotee, this one example is I saw when the devotee offering 3 candles instead of 1. That is not the practice. That kind of thing.
So, is there any more questions or comments or impressions?
A comment, Prabhu, from then let me read it. So, by Imon McManus who had asked the question. Thank you so much. Yes, I read Prabhupada and understand what he teaches. I struggle to loosen my grip on materialism. I cannot understand why clinging to misery happens.
Clinging to misery. Yeah, we're all tempted to cling on to misery sometimes, aren't we? Because it's just the easiest thing you can hang on to. Clinging on to misery. Wow.
So there's a difference, isn't there, between what you understand and what you feel emotionally. So you may understand something, but the distance from the mind to the heart is the biggest distance in the universe. So to take what we've accepted philosophically and implement it And that's the challenge. And it becomes real. Real means becomes real.
And also, I think it's important to start chanting because these various material attachments, they kind of they become just like if you, for example, smoking. A lot of people realize smoking is not good, but they still do it because that attachment is there, and it causes problems with health and etc. But when you find something better, and often, for those people who smoke, for example, the recommendation is to find something better, start running, find some activity that is healthy, find some hobby, and kind of replace with something better. So that's the idea. It will be difficult to let loosen that grip of materialism until we start experiencing higher happiness. So therefore, the effort in Krishna consciousness is not so much to let go materialism, but to embrace spiritual life. And one of the most fundamental teachings of Srila Prabhupada is to chant the Maha Mantra. By starting chanting the Maha Mantra, embracing that in our life, then that grip of materialism automatically loosens because you start experiencing this higher happiness in spiritual life. So thank you, Iman. That's a fantastic question. It shows that you are really thinking deeply about this.
Follow-up comment is, I was going to mention the disparity between head and heart. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Bhagavatam ki jai,
Jai.
Sri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai, Shri Chaitanya Jai, Maya Gosai ki jai.
Jayananda Prabhu ki.
Jai.